Everything changes in a matter of seconds in this league. A career-altering hit on a Sunday afternoon, a closed-door, late-night negotiation that permanently shifts a franchise's trajectory for a decade, or a sudden, inexplicable loss of confidence that derails a rising star right before our eyes. Welcome to NFL Nexus. We don't just read the headlines here. We dissect the brutal, high-stakes reality of professional football. Today, we're diving into a deep, comprehensive explainer of the unseen pressures that are actively defining the 2026 NFL season. Now, the games haven't even started yet, but make no mistake about it, the most critical battles of the entire year are already happening. They're unfolding right in front of us, hidden in plain sight, out on the sweltering grass of training camp.
There is just a massive information gap in how most fans view this time of year versus the stark reality on the ground. When we turn on the TV, we see players stretching in the sunshine. We see them running crisp routes on air, smiling, giving polite, generic interviews to the media. But if you pull back the curtain, training camp is an absolute high-stakes survival ground. It is ruthless. Careers quite literally hang in the balance every single afternoon. Behind closed doors, front offices are waging multi-million-dollar psychological wars with their very own star players. Medical staffs are holding their breath on catastrophic injuries, praying a surgical repair holds up to a 300-pound collision. And young, incredibly talented players are fighting intense internal demons just to stay relevant in a league that will replace you the exact second you blink.
Section 1. The Contract Standoffs. Okay, let's dive into this by starting with the macro, corporate side of the NFL, because long before a single touchdown is scored, championships are won and lost on a ledger. And right now, there is immense, almost suffocating financial tension brewing in Indianapolis. The Colts are attempting to navigate a very fragile championship window. But to actually pull that off, they have to manage the egos, the expectations, and the bank accounts of the very players making that window possible in the first place. Now, I want you to look at the incredible subtlety of modern NFL negotiations. Take this quote from their star running back, Jonathan Taylor. He says he has faith, and he says he would love to be a Colt for life. It sounds great, right? But you have to look right past those polite, polished words to see the calculated media play happening right in front of us. Taylor is participating fully in training camp. He hasn't held out, he hasn't slammed his fist on the table and demanded a trade, but by standing out there in front of the cameras, publicly stating how much he loves the city, while very casually reminding everyone that his agent is actively working on a new contract, he is masterfully tossing the pressure squarely onto the shoulders of the front office. It's a total public relations checkmate. The underlying message is loud and clear. I'm here, I'm working, I'm the good guy, so where is my check? And make no mistake, the team knows exactly what game is being played here. General Manager Chris Ballard responded with this incredibly strategic public praise. Notice what he does. He calls Taylor special. He emphasizes his explosive impact on the second level of the defense, and he waxes poetic, reminiscing about scouting him back in his college days. Both sides are completely, brilliantly playing nice for the cameras. They're smiling, they're shaking hands, they're tossing out compliments. But underneath this carefully crafted public ceasefire, the financial stakes remain entirely unresolved. The Colts know they desperately need Jonathan Taylor to make a playoff run, but they also know the modern running back market is notoriously unforgiving. Giving a massive second contract to a running back has burned franchise after franchise. So every single day that passes without ink on paper is a day where the underlying tension in that building ratchets up just a little bit more. Section 2. Resetting the market. While the Colts and Taylor play this polite, high-stakes game of chess, a much more violent financial earthquake is happening right next to them in the trenches. We are currently witnessing a rapidly exploding market for offensive linemen, and a massive historical benchmark is about to be challenged. Now, to really understand the gravity of this, we need to talk about what it actually means to truly reset the market. This isn't just about a guy getting a raise. It's when a single player's new contract so drastically raises the financial ceiling that it entirely rewrites the rules for all future negotiations at that position. It doesn't just affect one team. One front office's desperate or maybe bold decision sends massive, unavoidable shockwaves through the entire league. It fundamentally alters the salary cap math for all 31 other general managers. You have to rearrange your entire roster construction if the going rate for a lineman suddenly jumps by 20%. To put this into perspective, just a decade ago, the kind of money we are about to discuss was strictly, absolutely reserved for franchise quarterbacks. So the crucial point here centers on Quentin Nelson's completely unprecedented position. We're talking about a six-time All-Pro. He is, without debate, the best offensive lineman the Colts have rostered since they packed up and moved to Indiana over 40 years ago. He is a generational talent. But, and this is a massive but, he is also heading into an age 30 season, and he is actively seeking a record-breaking third contract. Let that sink in. A third mega contract for an interior lineman at age 30. It is an incredibly unprecedented and risky position for a franchise to be in. Nelson isn't just looking to be paid well. He's not looking for a Lifetime Achievement Award. He is aiming to become the NFL's highest paid guard, demanding astronomical numbers that are forcing the Indianapolis franchise into some incredibly uncomfortable financial corners. Look at the exact numbers Nelson is chasing right now. The current guard record is held by Tyler Smith, sitting at an annual average value, an AAV of $24 million. But Nelson's camp? They aren't just looking at other guards. They are looking squarely at Tyler Linderbaum, the former Ravens center who recently secured a jaw-dropping $27 million AAV. Nelson's representation is looking at these figures and demanding to completely obliterate both of them. He wants to leapfrog the center market entirely. He wants to set a new, absolute, undeniable ceiling for the interior offensive line.
But here's the thing, it's actually not just the average per year that makes this terrifying for Indianapolis. It is the structure of the deal. Linderbaum's contract with the Las Vegas Raiders was for $81 million over 3 years, and crucially, in all likelihood based on how these deals are structured, it amounts to a fully guaranteed contract. Now, the Raiders had the luxury of giving that kind of historic guarantee to a player heading into his age 26 season on the open market. He was hitting his absolute prime. Quentin Nelson, however, is tethered to the Colts until next year's legal tampering period, and he is 4 years older. This specific $81 million fully guaranteed benchmark set by Las Vegas severely complicates the Colts' negotiations. How do you, as a general manager, guarantee that kind of historical, franchise-altering money to a 30-year-old playing in one of the game's most brutal, physically demanding positions? You're basically betting your job that his body won't break down over the next 3 years. That right there is the multi-million-dollar dilemma keeping Chris Ballard awake at night.
Section 3. The physical toll. Which perfectly and somewhat tragically brings us to the brutal reality of what that guaranteed money actually pays for. Let's pivot from the billions being traded in the pristine offices of the executives down to the dirt and the absolute physical toll demanded from players on the field. Because in the National Football League, your body is your business. And that business is incredibly, dangerously fragile. Consider this contrast. On the left side, neck surgery. Honestly, those are two of the most terrifying words a professional football player can ever hear. The spine, the neck, it's the one injury that makes everyone in the building stop and reconsider everything. And then, on the right side, medically cleared for training camp. This is the dramatic, almost unbelievable whiplash of Colts defensive end DeForest Buckner's recent history. Think about it. The terrifying prospect of a spinal procedure where you legitimately wonder about your quality of life, followed by a rapid, triumphant return to the impossibly violent collisions of the NFL trenches. Read this quote from Buckner, but I want you to really think about what he isn't saying here. When he casually mentions teamwork involved with the whole operation and recovery, he is heavily glossing over months of agonizing, isolating rehabilitation. He is talking about world-class surgeons, yes, but he's also talking about grueling physical therapy sessions in empty, echoing facilities long after the cameras have left. He's talking about the dark, quiet days where a player has to genuinely wonder if they will ever walk normally onto a field again, let alone explode out of a three-point stance into a 300-pound offensive lineman. The intense physical resilience required just to step back onto a practice field, just to earn the right to hit someone again, it's completely staggering. As fans, we cheer the triumphant return on Sunday. We love the comeback story, but we rarely, if ever, comprehend the agonizing depth of the Tuesday morning recovery it took to get there. Section 4. The mental gain. But here is the harshest truth of all. A broken body can often be repaired by modern medicine. A broken mind, a loss of confidence, that is entirely different. Let's transition down to Jacksonville to explore the final and often totally invisible hurdle of the NFL, the intense psychological pressure. This is the mental game where legends are quietly forged or completely destroyed before they even begin. So what happens when a young player, fresh out of college, takes the league by absolute storm, only to crash headfirst into a devastating sophomore wall? We are talking about Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
His sudden and precipitous drop in production last season left absolutely everyone, fans, coaches, analysts, fantasy football managers, completely stunned, wondering what on earth went wrong.
707. That is how many receiving yards Brian Thomas Jr. managed in 2025. He caught just 48 passes and scored only 2 touchdowns. Now, on its own, for a depth receiver or a guy just trying to make the roster, that might just seem like a quiet, average year. But when you place it in context, it reveals a shocking, almost unprecedented collapse. Because this is a player who erupted as a rookie. He was a supernova, pulling down 87 receptions for 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns. He looked unguardable. To drop from nearly 1,300 yards down to barely cracking 700 is a massive, jarring regression. That kind of drop-off sets off blaring alarm bells in every single corner of the franchise. It makes front offices question their scouting, and it makes quarterbacks hesitate to throw your way. Let's look at the timeline of his young career to really see how this builds, because the whiplash is intense. In 2024, he was untouchable. He was the rookie sensation that every defensive coordinator was losing sleep over. By 2025, he became a cautionary tale, bogged down in a 707-yard slump that was heavily fueled by off-field struggles. And now, entering 2026, he finds himself in what the Jacksonville organization is essentially calling a big step redemption camp. This is make or break. In just 3 short years, he has ridden the highest highs of stardom and the absolute lowest lows of professional football. The trajectory of his entire career, his legacy, and his future earnings completely hinge on what he does right now in these sweltering, exhaustive summer practices. And you rarely get raw honesty like this in the NFL. Look very closely at his words here. When players struggle, what do they usually do? They blame the scheme. They blame a nagging ankle injury. They blame the quarterback's timing. But Thomas doesn't do that. He directly, publicly admits to a lack of concentration and acknowledges the heavy, distracting burden of, quote, off-field stuff. It is incredibly brave to be this transparent with the media, but it also brilliantly highlights how incredibly fragile success really is at this level. A promising Hall of Fame trajectory legacy can be completely derailed, not by a lack of speed or a lack of physical talent, but by a simple loss of mental focus and the creeping, unavoidable distractions of life outside the stadium. The pressure to perform flawlessly on national television while your personal world feels chaotic is a burden every single player carries in their locker, but very few ever actually talk about. Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen has responded to this crisis with a very calculated approach of deep support mixed with incredibly high expectations. The reports leaking out of camp are that Cohen is incredibly pleased with Thomas's unmatched attitude and relentless work ethic this summer. He's first in the building, last to leave. But Cohen also noted something critical that every football mind knows. You cannot simulate real confidence while running routes on air against nobody. Rebuilding a shattered player's psyche during the dog days of summer means putting them in live, highly contested, high-pressure practice situations. It means demanding they translate that raw, undeniable talent back into flawless execution when a defensive back is actually jamming them at the line of scrimmage. Right now, Thomas is fighting ghosts out there on the practice field, and Cohen is desperately trying to guide him back into the light before Week 1 kicks off. So as we pull back and look at the vast, complex landscape of this upcoming season, from the intense corporate standoffs in Indianapolis over tens of millions in guaranteed cash, to the miraculous and terrifying physical recoveries happening in the trenches, to a brilliant young receiver fighting just to reclaim his own mind in Jacksonville, the ultimate question remains hanging over everything. The regular season hasn't even begun, but the stakes legitimately could not be higher. Who is going to break first under the crushing, relentless, unforgiving pressure of the 2026 NFL season? The real battles, the ones that actually define who holds the Lombardi Trophy in February, they've already begun. Which of these hidden underlying storylines will you be watching most closely as camp unfolds? If you want to stay ahead of the game and dive much deeper into the real, unfiltered stories that are actively shaping the league right now, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and drop a comment below on what you thought about these massive storylines. Your support is absolutely what makes all of this deep dive analysis possible, so please consider taking that next step and support the channel by becoming a channel member today. We are going to be right here, breaking down the tape and covering every single twist and turn as this incredible season unfolds. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.